Hi, and welcome to Yeshiva Shem and Aver. I'm Rabbi David Katz. This is the Ger series, class number 13. And the title I want to give tonight's class is Lich'vod Shabbos, in the English format, Lich'vod Shabbat, for the honoring of Shabbos. That's the topic, and the inverted commas is the introduction to a Ger Shabbat, based on, let's say, commentary, Talmud, Rambam, all the way through the practical applications of Shabbos, on an introduction level to find out just how is it allowed, why is it allowed, why should it be allowed. Questions that are they're deep. We're getting to the core. How is it possible, both in a technical sense and practical sense, for the non-Jewish world to engage in Shabbat? Questions, comments, or feedback I can be reached at Rabbi Katz at virtualyeshiva.com. And let's go ahead and start. Ger number 13, introduction to the Shabbat. Ger Lich'vod Shabbat. Lich'vod means to honor Shabbat, to honor the Shabbat. So I want to say one thing as a general introduction. In the words, I think, of the Ramban in his commentary to the Mishnah Brura, which the Mishnah Brura is a commentary to the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch being the law authority, particularly in matters of Shabbat. There is a mitzvah to honor Shabbos. It's called Kavod Shabbos. The reason for, or the weight of Kavod Shabbos is against, and again, not in a negative way, but it rivals on impact the keeping of the entire Torah. With that said, already there's room for the Ger. Already. Once you establish precedent that the Ger can keep the entire Torah and all of its mitzvahs, which if you read, this is one theme that we're getting into. The Rambam makes it very clear that a ger, to the exclusion of the akum, different levels of Gentile, and we're going to get into this, the different titles, different labels, who's who and what's what. Let's call it the ger, has every right and ability to keep the entire Torah and commandments. And certainly Shabbat, as the Rambam mentions, is one of them. With that said, since there's already now the precedent of everything, and this is also corresponding to our famous Talmudic piece, Avodah Zarah 64b, where we find the laws of what is a Ger Toshav. And the third opinion is he keeps everything. We paskin, or we render the law on he keeps the 7 laws. The most less severe opinion is that he eats non-kosher meat and he rejects idolatry. And the stringent view, which one can freely take, is he keeps everything with the exclusion of kosher meat. Now, he can eat kosher meat, but he should at least be amenable to not eating kosher meat. Now, what's interesting is you'll say that's not the whole Torah. But what it is that by eating non-kosher meat, that is the fulfillment. It's called Yerida L'Tzorech Aliyah, downward for the sake of upward. That by eating non-kosher meat, then you gain the aperture of the entire Torah. This is also the precedent of Shabbat. We're going to say in about probably half an hour's time, maybe give or take, that the Ger Shabbat consists of an allowance of what's called Ochel Nefesh, food for the soul, which is, we're going to explain this, but it's the permit to breach the laws of Shabbat in certain areas. And again, the logic is that even though one can keep even without, if he is going to be a proper Ger Tzedek, But by keeping ochel nefesh, that is again the qualification of keeping the Shabbat. So it's the transgression, so to speak, but not in the name of transgression. It's in the name of keeping the entire Torah. Okay, the Rambam. It's going to get a little bit technical this week, but it's for good reason. Because everybody really should be armed in the Rambam. Why and how and where, all these questions, can one keep the Shabbat? We've touched on a lot of these issues over the last however many months or year, but as I'm seeing the theme of these classes, I think we're consolidating, clarifying, elucidating, and making everything really airtight. And rather than disparate parts and spread out, everything is getting really, tightly packed, and better engineering, let's say. So here we go. The Rambam makes very clear distinctions of non-Jews. And the reason why this is important is because people that are going to say, oh, come on, the Rambam says a Noahide, and we're speaking in the language vernacular of the accusers, a Noahide cannot keep Shabbos. I'm sure everyone has heard this statement, right? A Noahide cannot keep Shabbos. And you say, but such and such said we can. And the answer is no. The Rambam says you can't. Okay, now let's get to the real core of the Rambam. The first thing you have to know, and this is monumentally huge, is there's a commandment to give tzedakah, charity. The Rambam makes clear two distinctions. If an idolater gives the Jew money for charity, and the idolater in Hebrew is akum, which is, what do you call that when NASA, an anagram? What's it when NASA is called NASA, right? NASA becomes abbreviated for NASA. That's the word akum for idolater. He's an idolater. And it is forbidden by Torah for the Jewish people to receive a gift by an idolater. Because the idea is that it's idolatrous. He's giving you something that was idolatrous, and it's assumed then the Jew is doing his job as a Jew in the world. And I did not undo my phone for some reason. 1 second. Okay. The Jew should be doing his job in the world. And by doing as such, it's assumed the Jewish people will be engaged in working in the temple and doing holy things in an ideal world. Right? We're speaking in a very romanticized view of the universe. The Jew is doing his job in the temple. You have the idolater from Antarctica coming up with an idolatrous item. Hold on, this is not good. I bought a new phone and I did not unplug it. Okay. Again, sorry about that. The Jew is working in the temple. The idolater comes up from Antarctica. He offers an idolatrous item. The Jew does not realize it's an idolatrous item. It goes on the altar in the temple, and a massive desecration of God's name has happened. That is, let's say, the paradigm of why it is forbidden to receive goods from an idolatrous nation or peoples. That's what the world that tells the Ger, do not keep Shabbos. That's what they're saying this is. And you can see by the distinction that we're painting here why it's wrong to tell people this. Now the Rambam then says, a ben Noach, and pay attention to the word ben Noach, as in B'nai Noach. He gives the Jew tzedakah. that money is to be given to the poor amongst Israel. Now, by in every sense of the concept, you cannot say that it is idolatrous. There is no idolatry in that money. It goes into, let's say, Beis HaMikdash funds. Now you're opening yourself up to the Noahides in the Beis HaMikdash, in the holy realm of existence, and you're negating the idolatrous side, saying that's forbidden. It should be noted that the Rambam is taking the liberty to express this point of view on the mitzvah of tzedakah. The one thing that we have, and I mean the one thing, the one Torah that exists from the mouth of Shem upon leaving the ark. There's a Gemara that says, I think they asked Shem, what did you learn on the ark? And this is, as far as I know, this is the only Torah we have from Shem. He says, I learned the mitzvah of tzedakah. And this is the whole idea of the two things the world is founded upon: kindness and emes, wisdom and kindness. And you put wisdom and kindness together, that is what the DNA of charity or righteous acts called tzedakah is called. Charity is not about the money, it's about the righteous act. And by nature, it's not a righteous act if it's coming from an idolater. There's an agenda. That's what idolatry is about. Now, the person might not be inherently evil. There's a salvation that's possible. But the Talmud says, if you aid a Moloch, it's better if you are not created. You're perpetuating evil's agenda. It's the burden of the world to destroy idolatry and a Moloch. Once you pull out the plug on the root, then those that were burdened by a Moloch become no longer idolatrous. But once in the framework of idolatry, it's dangerous to be involved. Now the Bnei Noach, on the other hand, the Torah testifies this is a righteous person, a righteous act. There's no idolatry here. And this comes under the framework of mitzvah l'chiyuso. There's a mitzvah on both sides of sustenance, spiritually and physically, between the Ger and the Jew. The Jew has, let's say, an open level of mitzvah, that's known. But what we find from the Rambam is it is absolutely a two-way street in the relationship. There is a relationship, there is a brotherhood, and the interesting aspect is it is completely based on righteousness. Now again, that sounds extremely simplified. The revelation is the Jewish side righteous? You're taking tzedakah from the Ger. Let's look at that literally. You're taking righteousness from the Ger. The Torah says, tzedek tirdof. Just righteousness you should chase after. But no, nobody's going to interpret that you chase after tzedakah. I don't think that's a dignified thing to say. But the pathway between the two people is based on righteousness. And if the Jewish side of that equation is to give chiyus, mitzvah l'chiyus, so vitality, what's the Jew getting back? Tzedakah. But it's not based on monetary. That's obvious. You're getting righteousness back. That's the definition of the relationship. One side is receiving vitality. The other side gets back righteousness. And it's a con on both sides. The more righteousness given by the ger, the more vitality he will receive. The more vitality given by the Jew, the more righteousness he will receive. Both sides win. Once you plug that equation to idolatry, the Jew becomes, let's say, it's assumed it's reality, and he's not exactly that righteous. So you're not even getting righteousness back. It's not even in the name of righteousness. Then it really does become money. And I think we know what that's called. That's called religion. And that's where the Rambam comes in and says religion is forbidden for the Noahide. And once you get involved with the idolatrous part of the equation, it's only about religion from then on. And it's the uglier parts of religion. So the way to view the Rambam is to get into this deeper perspective. When he says akum, when he says ben Noah, when he says tzedakah, when he says chiyuso, when he talks about presents given, understand the context. Understand the layers of the context. Why does he talk about righteousness? Because righteousness as money is religion in the worst sense. And he's saying don't enter religion with the idolater. And look around in the world today. How much do you see that going on? A lot. A lot. What you don't see is the vitality and righteousness being shared between the two. And ironically, that's what the Rambam is saying, go and do. And that's what needs to be done. In the meantime, what you learn from this Rambam is there is a distinction between Akum, Ben Noah, Ger, Goy. These are not slang terms. They're not irrelevant terms. They're not even only halakhic terms. They are philosophical terms. The term itself is rendered useless. It's the weighted connotation that comes through the relationship. And if you're going to equate the entire Torah, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Do you want to love the idolatry? Forget the idolater, the idolatry. Because you cannot love somebody as yourself. It's impossible. I don't love you and you don't love me. I don't even know you, most likely. So what does the Torah say? Did you ever hear of the mitzvah love the ger? Now that you love the ger, I don't know what a ger is. From Dayton, Ohio, I don't know ger from anything. So when you educate about the ger, stop focusing on the person. We don't know each other. We don't know who's who, what's what. But what is the ger? The ger represents this bridge of chiyuso and tzedakah, giving vitality and returning with righteousness. I don't know about you, but that sounds interesting. And then you find out that's a big chunk of this ger. The guy who's called the ger in generic terms, that's what he represents. And you say it's an alternative to religion. And most likely religion has turned you off at some point if you're called a human being. So yeah, I love the ger. I'm all about anti-religion and getting to the truth of reality, finding God, being at peace in the world. That's what I'm interested in. So let's go ahead and call that the ger, for a lack of a better term, and excuse the general statement. Everybody can love that. How can you're not even a human being if you don't love that? If you're going to choose the idolater equation, you're not human. And I might even mean that might be quite literal. You may be agencies of the other side. If you're trying to buy off God with money, yeah, it's a problem. It is a real problem. That is not something to love. But they'll tell you, oh, go love this guy. He gave $1 billion to our organization. That sounds like something to love. Rambam's telling you, have the right perspective and focus. Now that you love the Ger, based on that he represents what's called good in the world, now there's a relationship. Okay, you are a Ger, I am a Jew, and all I know it is on the general level. But at least we have a good rapport. It's based on righteousness, vitality, goodness in the world. And you start to find out these are real people on both sides are realizing this. Now the love is internal. It's becoming something internalized. Now that the Ger now gets a name. He has a name. He's no longer figure in the background that I don't know. And the Jew now has a name. And there's a rapport, connection, dialogue, friendship, brotherhood. Two people's brothers. And you learned how to love. Look at that. Yesterday it was impossible. And now you find out that wasn't so hard. I just never thought to look at somebody in a general sense. I was told that's rude and ignorant. But it's not. The space and distance is serving a purpose. It's allowing an acquaintance to happen. It's allowing to say, look what I represent, look what I stand for. That's what reality should be. Don't just jump where the money is. Say, hey, I'm friends with him. He gave the X amount of money. Or the rabbi told me I can do whatever I want. Blah blah blah. Even if it's true, you're getting into something that's not really real. It's a perspective or side of the person, but it's not them. They are not that. Whereas here, the external view of the Ger and the Jew relationship, it's something true, but it's never going to be negated. It's going to grow into something bigger, into a real brotherhood. Now there is ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. There is love of the fellow man. Now there is that which is hateful to you to another do not do. And it's not generic anymore. It's heart to heart. It's person to person, name to name. Whereas if you get into the idolater equation, on either side, mind you, on either side exists. Don't think it doesn't. And you say, I love you. What you're saying is, I love the avodah zarah. I love the idolatry. I love the idolatry that you represent in this relationship. That is a radical spiral out of control. So when we go back to the words of the Rambam, know what you're dealing with. On both sides, yet again. The Jew's going to have a perspective of, is this Jew a Ger? Because the Torah tells you the Jews are Gerim. They come from Gerim. They are a Ger. King David says, I am a Ger. I'm guessing chances are you can trust a Ger on either side. Is he a Ben Noah? Okay, he's not keeping the entire Torah. The Jew, does he understand he's a Ben Noah? Where do you think Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who weren't even Jews, come from? Since you call them Jews, where do you think they come from? Noah. So you didn't get the story right, but at least he acknowledges where they come from. Now here's the question. The famous derogatory term goy. The Ger is not a goy. Goy is the word the Rambam uses for idolater, in conjunction with akum. So the Jew needs to know, is this really an akum I'm dealing with? Is there an agenda here? Is there a buyout happening of this relationship? But the Ger needs to know, is this Jew across from me, is he coming for me like a goy? Because secularism happens. Warped ideas in theology has entered both sides. The Ger needs to know, I'm getting mitzvah l'chiyuso, granted, I'm getting vitality, but is it the vitality that I need? You're being told, oh, the rabbi knows everything, you listen to your rabbi. Well, hold on a second, I want to know what this rabbi's on about. Because I know what Goyishakite is. And sometimes it sounds like Goyishikite. So this relationship, this brotherhood, it's a two-way street when it is brotherhood. The idolatrous affair is one-sided. And if you're on the other side of that one-sided affair, then we both know who the idolater is. It's an unpleasant truth, but if you know that you are the one giving the tzedakah, and you are not the idolater of the equation, and there is idolatry in the equation, there's a goy present, then I guess we know what to do. It's a serious mitzvah because the Hashem says, do not taunt the ger 46 times. If you're going to enter the equation and you are the idolater on either side and you're taunting the ger on either side, meaning the Jew needs to be aware if he's a ger, he needs to be aware of what's going on. This is the holy of holies in this relationship. The revelation of God is in that relationship. Real brotherhood, real love. The essence of the Mashiach, Pinchas, who was a recipient of that love of the relationship of the ger, is in that relationship. Therefore, the Rambam tells you, know who you're talking to. Is this Akum? Is this ger? Is this Goy? Is this Ben Noah? Keep the general, allow for the general. It's okay to be generic. But also understand we're going to be leaving that real soon. Bezrat Hashem. It's no longer the ger and the Jew. It's now Plony and Plony. Then it becomes friend and friend, brother and brother. But if you don't start on the surface with a generic, you are endangered to the core. So the Rambam tells you, know the relationship. And that there is a relationship. The different words used are essential. And how do you get from level to level? Let's say that you want to get into a ger relationship. And you have an idolater come to you. And Rabbi, here, take I want to support your cause. Here's $1,000 to my church. Blah, blah, blah. You say, okay, we got an issue here. I'm not taking this money. Keep your $1,000. But I'll tell you what, did you ever learn the 7 laws of Noah? Well, Rabbi, can't we learn the entire Torah together? I'm not really, down with these 7 laws. There's much more to life than just 7 laws. You have 613. So now this is way off base. This is not a competition, you say. This is not about, I got 613, you have 7, that's why you're doing 7. That's the wrong perspective again. And that's just going to create a bigger problem if you're successful. And the guy says, yeah, I keep 7. Yeah, the rabbi keeps 613, I keep 7. But that 7 grows into an I know more than you. And then the 613 becomes, oh, but I own you. Again, idolatrous. What does the Torah say? A non-Jew that learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol high priest. And yet it uses in one place Nachri, which is, again, another term for non-Jew, and another place Akum. And that you're not placing the 7 laws as if to say, well, you keep your 7, you stay on your side of the fence, I stay on mine. It's a ladder. View it as the ladder. It's not the end-all means. That's what's missing from the world. Start with 7. Then that you learn the Torah, he's like the high priest. Why? Because he's taking on more. Then once he goes, let's say, from Akum, he's Nachri, you're watching the development here. You're watching for the changes. And you're engaging. You're not taking money and gifts, but you're doing the deed. When somebody comes out of the pit, don't send them back to the pit. And eventually you see that he buys into the Torah. He says, yeah, God gave 7 laws to Moses, and therefore, I realize this is what God wants. But that you're not going to be successful unless you at least know with absolute certainty 7 go to heaven is not the answer. There's a world of Torah and commandments and God and love and brotherhood and Israel and temples out there. The Torah is the vehicle to grow. How do you get out of the church? How do you get from Akum to Nachri? How do you get a pass to the Beis Hamikdash? How do you get into the vitality? How do you get into what is righteousness that you have in you the whole time on both sides? It just took someone to get it out. Learning the proper Torah. And the Rambam then will tell you, once you are Ben Noah, floodgates open. Because that's the beauty of the Kohen Gadol part, the high priest, is it covers literally cover to cover the Torah. And if you want to get real turbocharged, everybody in the world is interested in offerings. How do you think Cain and Abel got? It's built in our DNA. When you hear burn stuff and send it up to God, you say, wow, that sounds really spiritual. Because it is. And anybody can make an Olah. And it requires the participation of both camps. And Korban literally means to gather together, to draw close. Not only are you drawing the two people close, their souls, worlds, points of view. That's how Naaman becomes a Ger Toshav. And Naaman is the quintessential Ger Toshav. And you're using it in the guise of Kohen Gadol. Hey, you want to be a Kohen Gadol? It's enticing. A priest. It's way more enticing than a rabbi. But the trick is when you introduce the truth, the non-Jewish Torah, to the non-Jewish world. There's no such thing as saying, well, you're an idolater, you stay there, I stay here. There are ways of bridging the gap even there. Introduce the Torah of the priest, i.e. Korban Olah, the offering. Eventually you'll find out you get to Ben Noah real quick. They'll see truth much faster. Because chances are they're not bad people. They're just wrapped up in a Moloch scam. There's no need to think and crusade along the lines of, I must kill the world. If you're not like me, I have to kill you. There's ways of reaching out in peace. Yes, the real Amalekite is really evil, and he does deserve to die. But even him, the laws of Noah bring them back. Because the perversion of Amalek is in the exploitation of Noahide law. So when you push out Noahide laws to the world, let's say in the most truthful way, that also kills Amalek. It's a win-win game when you know the extent and leverage in the true Torah. The Rambam then makes it very clear. Know the words, know the leverage, know the extent, know the relationship. But not as the end of means. It's the beginning. Everyone learns it out there as the end. Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. Know it as the beginning of the affair. How to guide yourself through. Okay, you're approached, Rabbi, by St. Methodist Church, and they want to give money. What do? Do you say, oh, you're an Amalekite, go away, I'm going to kill you? No, that creates Chil Hashem. They're going to go on YouTube. The rabbi wanted to kill me. He's thinking this is some kind of savagery. There is a flirtation. And there is a dance. And know what the leverage is. Know what you can give and take so that not so it's within the boundary of the law. To facilitate change and growth and awareness on both sides. Because last time I checked, people don't drop from heaven built and say, wow, today I am, free of everything. It's a process. The Jews go through foreign lands. The foreign lands go through foreign lands. We all come from that Naaman program. We all get that feeling of impurity when we're in the place where we end up. And it was God that put you there. So if you're saying that you are inherently evil, then God is inherently evil too. And Eov quickly learned that's not acceptable. Just because something in our world seems wrong does not mean God is flawed. But once you say, man, God ruined me, then you're saying God is evil. It's not true. That's the beauty of the book of Eov. It's harsh truth. God actually cares about every individual. And he puts every individual in difficult places. And yes, the good guy might be in the church and the bad guy actually is the from Noahide. And you say, where's the justice? The justice is you need to treat everybody on the level of who they really are, according to their name. The name permeates out to their existence. Yes, he may be an idolater, but there's a part of him that's not. Therefore, you don't need to call his name idolater X. You can call him halachically Akum Y. I'm talking about as a mental preparation. Once you remove idolater X and Akum Y, hey, what's your name? Now his name is no longer idolater anything. And names have meaning. Names are only good. I don't care if your name is Chris Christensen. You'll have a good name. Get to know the name. Know the leverage. Know what the Torah can do to him. Know what God awareness can do to him. Even the Amalekite needs to hear about the 7 laws. Where do you think Ruth comes from? It's forbidden to bring a Moabite into the camp. But through the 7 laws of Noah, the whole theology of, the system and doctrine of, oh yeah, only the Messiah comes from her. That's the beauty of the Rambam. That is the ultimate beauty of the Rambam. You can view the work of the Rambam as Yad Chazaka, the strong hand, statutes, I know the law. Yet his work of halacha is also called Mishnah Torah, the teaching reiteration of Torah. Meaning the first time you hear it, you say, wow, that's the Yad Chazaka, that's strong. I know the law. I pound my chest, I know the law. Yet if you listen to what the Rambam is saying, he says, learn it again. Mishnah Torah, keep learning it. You say, man, it's not as statute-oriented as I thought. Maybe the Rambam actually was a little deeper than I thought. Maybe he had a little bit more Kabbalah inside than I thought. They say, but he didn't learn Kabbalah. He was a rationalist. Yet what he's telling you is life is also rational. That doesn't make you a rationalist. It means you can get Kabbalah by living in this world, by being one with God. You don't have to be born into the Arizal's family. So what do you do if you're not with Torah? You're not with Kabbalah? You don't know Hebrew? You're in a church? You found yourself there? You're feeling a little bit impure with the Eov Naaman program? Does that mean you are not part of civilization? You're not in reality? You don't know any Torah, no Kabbalah, you're helpless. You're a lost soul, you deserve to die. The Rambam says no. At first glance, yeah, it looks a little rough. There is bad in the world, and maybe you're not so good off either. But if you learn the secret of the Rambam, the way it works is this guy is feeling impure underneath all that. Why is he impure? Because he has a Yetzer Hara. He has an evil inclination. Why would he have an evil inclination if it only comes from the burden of the commandments? And he's an idolater. The answer to that question is he has an evil inclination because he's impure from that evil inclination. He's already accepted the whole Torah. It's called, I know there's a real God. That makes you impure already. And I'm talking about Torah impurity. Means you have a portion of the red heifer. That means you have a portion of the third temple. That means you are already standing there. You now need to walk a difficult walk. And if everyone says, get him out of here, you've done a disservice. Naaman was impure, and Elisha said, hey, get your tuchus in the Jordan River. And dunk, mystically, 7 times. And there's a lot of impurity out there. There's a lot of Jordan River material out there. There's a lot of Naaman out there. That means there's a lot of Torah. And there's a lot of relearning the Rambam to do. Because the way he got impure was he was following in his heart, let's call it the supernal Rambam. He was working out Kabbalistic secrets from God himself. How do you think he came to acknowledge God? So the stark statutes of Rambam's Yad Chazaka, which means strong hand, becomes Mishnah Torah, relearning the Torah. And what do you think is the ultimate objective of the relationship of Ben Noah Jew Tzedakah L'Chiuso? You're going from Yad Chazaka, I know the Jewish Torah, I know the non-Jewish Torah, to Mishnah Torah. I think I need to learn it again. He says, yeah, me too. You go from hate to love. And that's the mitzvah, love your neighbor. Though the actual law is, lessen your hatred for him if it's impossible to love him. So when you achieve the love on the generic level, you are simultaneously removing hatred, and bigotry, and division, and schism, and jealousy. And the biggest jealousy is, I want good for me, but not for you. What kind of thing is that? Because you'll realize no one's stepping on toes here. And you'll ultimately want the best for each other. Again, that's how one becomes righteous. One gets vitality. It's the gift that keeps giving. That's the gift that you take. One that ends, that's not the gift you take. The idolatrous gift is not the gift that keeps giving. That's the gift that keeps taking. Now you come into the practicality. Okay, good. So I'm a Ben Noah. All right, I gave up idolatry. Now what? Now what? Now's when it begins. See, the thing is, when you get to this point, you say, man, now that it's all, the mystique of keeping more is, well, now I'm just kind of happy with the 7. Because the other reason why one wants to go beyond is it's taboo. I want more than 7. Now that everything is rectified, you say, maybe I'm better off just keeping it simple, stupid. But the answer is no. The objective and agenda really is to keep more. Not because, hey, come convert. Hey, I want you to do this and make it hard. That there's a natural inclination, there's a natural pull. This whole thing in the beginning with the Rambam was rectifying what's right and wrong, hard and easy. The easy way out will get you in trouble. That's where the pull was. I want to keep more, I want to do everything. Once rectified, once saying, okay, I'm prepared to work, I'm prepared to learn the language, I'm prepared to straighten things out. Now you are prepared for Shabbat. Now there's the actual preparation. So the Shabbat comes in the Talmud in the tractate Krisis. When the Zohar learns it out, and says Noah is the benchmark of Israel. Why did he separate the impure animals from the pure animals? The idea was, this is, let's say, the prototype of Israel, Israel being the Torah. Noah, his name stands for Yaniach, which means rest. Then the animals were in pairs of 2s and 7s, representing 2-day holidays, and 7-day holidays, and 1-day holidays. Let's call that the Jewish year. Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, Purim, Hanukkah, Shavuos, Sukkot, Passover. And you find out that the Noahide world keeps the Jewish year. I think they call that learning the Parsha Shavua. Why would you assume, once you break out of all I'm allowed to learn is Parshas Noah, and you say the Kohen Gadol, that idea takes the whole Torah to be a proper priest. I won that war. But I'm not keeping anything, Rabbi. Don't you worry me. The answer is, what would that be? Why would you plant and sow and prepare the whole year's worth of Torah and say, okay, but the seeds, you don't get the seeds. You give those to us. The holidays are there to soak up the reward, and I don't mean reward as in reward and punishment. You learn the Torah, keep the holiday. You're going to learn on Shabbos and say, but don't keep it. It's theoretical for you. You can write a report if you want. The Ger is keeping the holidays and Shabbos probably more the Shema than the Jewish camp itself. One learns Torah, let's call it Tov Vavoh, chaos, and it is in it. The Ger learns the Parsha, that's learning Lishma. Let's learn for where we are now. Reality spins on the Parsha. Just because you sit in Bava Metzia for 5 years doesn't mean the world revolved for 5 years around Bava Metzia. The Parsha moved on. And the Gera move on with that Parsha. And the holidays come and go. The holidays and Shabbos are part of the Parsha, part of this Kohen Gadol, part of this Ola, part of this Beis Hamikdash reality. It's part of Ger. Ger being the 4th Vav of this famous 4-headed Shin. That 4-headed Shin is no longer the Goy and the Jew. It's called Koheles Yaakov, the congregation of Jacob. Priest, Levi, Israel, Ger. 4 parts of the nation of Israel. And you want to say, oh, come on. Not really Israel. It's a nice little feel-good statement, right? Well, not as much as when David said, I am a Ger. Boker Tov, that was not a feel-good statement. And why are you called the high priest? Because when you are doing your rites given to you in Torah, called offering in the temple, and you say, but can I shech the animal? Can I really be a part of it? Or am I a nice spectator? The answer is you are a part of it. Now, you'll say that's condescending in a sense. The fact is, once you get to the point that you say the Ger takes place in service of the temple, that is really the principal Kohen Gadol, high priest in the Holy of Holies. Because once you get there and you open the Chumash through all the different commentaries, when it says Ger, it gets a little different now. Now that distant whim that maybe it's me becomes reality. Now 90% of Ger in the Torah becomes the Ger. And you start questioning, why is a convert called a Ger? When Rove places, the majority are Ger Toshav, Ger Tzedek, Ger the Gate. If you're going to get bound up in labels and distinctions, well, let's get into the Ger, Rabbi, because there's a lot there. The 10 Commandments is a Ger keeps Shabbos. Are you saying a convert keeps Shabbos as if you didn't already know that? You come into Shabbos, There are 3 ways of breaking Shabbos. Why? Because when a person breaks Shabbos, he doesn't do it because I'm going to be evil today and break Shabbos. It's a process of growth. Yet to become a ger is a bit of an obligation. So how does he break Shabbos? Ochel nefesh. He gives the food to his soul. Why do you watch TV on Shabbos? Not because you have an addiction to the on-off button. In the name of I do evil, I am attacking God with the on-off button. It's called, okay, look, I got the game on, I really want to see it, and I want to get, satisfied watching the game. So yes, repentance, tshuva, is a process. And we've already established that you have an animal soul based on the evil inclination that everybody has. It's called commandments as a burden. That's life. Yes, you want to be close to God, and yes, it can be a burden. When you say, I want to be close to God, but that means keep Shabbos. I don't want to keep Shabbos. That's an evil inclination. That inclination is an accentuation of the animalistic side that we all have. That's what renders a person impure on the Jewish scale, Torah scale. And the good side is from impurity comes purity. From this impurity, you are a part of the red heifer. That means ticket third temple as brothers. So for every negative and downfall is for a greater rising. Therefore, it's serious to become a ger. It's not a joke. It is a binding of law. So there are 3 ways one can grow into the law. Let's say now you have to keep Shabbat. Why? The Talmud says that since there's no olah, korban of the bird offering until the third temple comes, that means that you have tachlis geula. If there's any nation on earth that's raising their hand saying we're waiting for the third temple, not the second, not the first, the third, that's the ger. Because when he's a ger, he cannot bring the olah offering until the third temple comes. So once you say you're a ger, you have converted your soul on that level that you have gone from, let's say, saying, I stand for the second temple and exile, into a person that says, I'm with the third temple. I'm with Mashiach, I'm with the land. That is the essence of the redemption. The closest connection to God. And I don't care where you come from, what color your skin is, what religion, so to speak, you are. When you stand with the third temple, you work and serve God. That's why the ger is called the Kohen Gadol. Once he learns Torah, he is on the way of being a ger. He has that level of command upon him. He's found God. He's accepted upon his soul. So if that one is bound and to keep Shabbat, Shabbat is the replacement of the offering, says the Talmud. But if there's a commandment, okay, so I'm bound to keep Shabbos, I can't. I don't know enough. I don't know if I want it enough. What do? You can say forget about it and make light of the Torah. You can probably gain more friends that way. But the whole point of being a ger is that you don't want to go back. I want to leave the world of lies behind. Show me the third temple. I don't want second temple consciousness. So the 3 ways to keep Shabbos. To engage in the ability to invest in the food of the soul. And the soul word is nefesh, which is the lowest level soul, that which gives you immediate dividends. Breaking the law to quench my animalistic desires. Everybody has it. Until one learns how to prepare for it, and not only through learning, but through infrastructure. Are you telling me that if you don't live by the synagogue, and you want to go to synagogue, how are you going to get there? You're going to drive. It's ochel nefesh. Am I telling you have to walk 45 miles? No. So you're not ready to live next to the synagogue. That's called life. Life is the return. Life is the repentance. So while you're still going through life, and it's normal, there are ways to break the Sabbath. The first and the most minute is to keep Shabbat as if it is a holiday for a Jew. So therefore, what do? You cook food on Shabbos. That's all you do against the law, right? Saturday morning, you cook scrambled eggs. Therefore, for a Jew on holiday, he's allowed to cook food with an open flame. It's a little less stringent than Shabbos. So you get around. I don't write. I don't get on the internet. But right now it's too much to do it all. So I cook. I put the chicken in the oven Friday night. I make scrambled eggs for breakfast. And, I have whatever for lunch. I cook. The next level is Chol Moed, the intermediate days of Sukkot. All right, so I do certain things. I drive. I don't do work. I don't balance the checkbook. I have certain things I don't do. And the least stringent is the ability to say it's like any other day. All you have to do is say Shabbat Shalom Chevre. Everybody, Shabbat Shalom, see you. You're in the synagogue, wherever you are, even at home, husband and wife, kids, aunt, uncle, whatever it is. Even to God, it's Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, thank you, God. You just made Kiddush, you kept Shabbat, you are taking the Ger liberty seriously in the soul. Then they'll say, but you're stealing the covenant of the Jew. That is stealing the covenant of the Jew. You cannot do that. So first of all, the Gemara says the Ger Toshav keeps Shabbat, the way I just explained it. That's already written. The answer is there are two ways of keeping Shabbat, and this is the Rambam, who says the Ger keeps Shabbos. So there are two words that are the same. Yaniach, which comes from the language Noah, which means rest. And we all know Shabbos is basically a rest day. And there are two ways to rest. There's Shabbat, which, by the way, the word Shabbat means stop. And there is Yaniach, rest from Regua, as the prophet Isaiah uses. We're going to go in a car, and I say, hey, there's a stop sign up ahead. Come up, bring the car to a rest. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you don't want a ticket, you will bring the car to a full 3-second rest, as they teach in America. That's called Shabbos. Resting means stopping. So Friday night, you know why I rest? I know for a fact I am not checking my smartphone email. No chance. It is off until Shabbos goes out. Phones are unplugged. Everything is off. I am resting. I've entered a domain, a space, and there is no transgression. It doesn't happen. There's no flirtation. That is the Jewish Shabbat. That comes from infrastructure. My kids are off school. I'm off work. Everything's closed. Come and spot and try to find an open restaurant on Shabbos. You're not going to. Things would change. If it was a jamming, happening city on Saturday, hey, let's go to the beach, guys. That would be a little more challenging and difficult. But real Shabbat means game over. There is nothing to do. That is rest. And if you've ever experienced Shabbat in Sfat, as we're going to end the class, and I'm going to leave out some information here, but Shabbos is a time of learning. Torah is Shabbat. Why are you able to learn secrets on Shabbat more than during the week? How can you learn when your phone's going off all day? There is no deep meditation when you got ding, 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 ding all the time. When you're sitting alone Saturday and you have all day long straight open highway with you and God, the Torah of truth will yield the Torah of truth. Righteousness will come out of your learning because there is nothing else. It is stopped. But that takes infrastructure. And I mean that for the Jew as well. Because the Jewish religion has instituted an infrastructure that is very close and conducive to not stopping. Very close. It's not forbidden, but it's very hard. And where things balance out is the ger gets very close to stopping. His rest is regula. Don't be rambunctious. Check your email, but don't check it 5,000 times a day, like everyone does during the week. So when you get to the comfort zone of that Shabbos, do you keep it like the mundane? Do you keep it like the intermediary day? Do you keep it like the holiday? Do you keep it like the barest minimum of transgression of the holiday? That depends. How much do you want to rest? And the rest then becomes, okay, anyone can rest by not being rambunctious. The question is, how much rest do you want to produce Torah in holiness? That comes from infrastructure. And that's whether you're a Jew or a ger. Infrastructure is the difference maker. Can you sit and learn Torah 20 hours a day? It's not about do I want to. It's about can you. It's about returning to God in repentance, maintaining the love. We all want to be Torah scholars, lovers of God, yet we come from very far, Jew and non-Jew. So it is a process. And to the point, let's say you're a ger tzedek 25 years, and for whatever reason you don't want to convert. But you can take the regula to the point of it's close to Shabbat. And I'm not speaking in terms of, wow, you can even. Because if you want to convert, convert. Ger tzedek can convert. But there's a nice equilibrium in having the freedom and luxury to go and maneuver and do and accomplish. And yet it's not saying go do what you want. It's not saying don't do. It's about choosing and choice based on truth, the soul and spirit, where one is, where what one wants, what is reality, what is the best for the family and myself and the community, where do I belong, where I will need to be, who needs me where. Sometimes one might feel he needs to convert, one might feel not right now. My wife won't let me, my community won't, I feel I have a job to do, I have to work on Saturdays. How am I? Right now I have to. I don't live next to the synagogue, and frankly, I don't want to move. These are all expressions telling you what and where, and liberty and freedom and allowance and leverage of what to do. The point is, he who's in Shabbat might not be very regua. And he who's regua might be very much like Shabbat. And the point is, there is a bit of an overlap. And that overlap allows one, let's say, to not learn Torah. If you're not being regua, mamish, on your Shabbat, what are you learning? You're an automaton running around. That's probably called religion. And once you shed religion, and you get regua to the point where it's akin to Shabbat, you also are drawing the Torah down and learning holy. At that point, what does it matter? Everyone in the world is a ger on that level. And there's the mitzvah, the chiyuso, and the tzedakah, and the relationship. The 6-day work week is filled with Shabbat, and Shabbat is filled with the 6-day work week. Everything is achieved and gained in the end. With that, I'll end. I didn't get to finish all my notes. Next week, we're going to finish and enjoy, it's called part 2 of this class. For marker note's sake, pick up with, just to remind myself, if you can remember, pick up with number 2 in the notes, going into number 3, just to make it known. So that is the introduction to the ger and Shabbat, and where it comes from and the source. And we're going to get into really how does Shabbat come about, how does it form, Basically yesh miayin, something from nothing. How do you get Shabbos, something meaningful and deep from nothing? That goes for every Bo Tshuva, every Jew, every Ger. How do you start to really make it matter and count when you come from nothing? And again, I mean that on both sides. Because being grandfathered in is akin to nothing. And next week, B'ezrat Hashem, will start with, or we'll end up next week rather, how do you end up with a celebration of Shabbat that would make God proud and bring holiness and God awareness into our lives? That's all for this week. Thank you very much, Rabbi David Katz. And questions, comments, or feedback, please let me know, Rabbi Katz at virtualyeshiva.com. All right, thank you, and see everyone next week.